I'm going to keep preaching this from the hilltops, and maybe when it hits developers and publishers' bottom line, they'll listen even more. Stop releasing unfinished games because it makes people trust you less and not want to spend money on your products, which in turn will make you less profit. You don't need to be a financial expert to realize that, but I guess it needs to be said. Let's get into it.
Skip it up and that up.
Man, oh man, Cyberpunk 2077. What can I say about it? The first reveal trailer actually released before even the 8th gen consoles were on the market, and the game finally came out December 10th, 2020, and it was a mess. It was a complete mess, especially on 8th gen consoles. It wasn't even really playable. I haven't played the game. I've watched a bunch of Digital Foundry videos, and there are times it's running in the teens and 20s, and there was severe texture pop-in. It was an awful experience. And what was funny is when reviewers were allowed to put out their reviews for the games on YouTube, CD Projekt Red's like, okay, you could show this, you could show this, you could show this, because they didn't want you to see how terribly the game ran, especially on 8th gen consoles. They just were like, hey, it's a heavily hyped game. We know we'll ship a bunch of units of it. We'll sell a bunch of games. Just curate what you show about it. Don't show it running in just like 10 frames a second in certain spots. We'll patch that later. Get them to buy the game now, even if the customer will be royally pissed off. And then, hey, we'll patch it in later and everything will be fine. Which it took forever for them to fix the game, and now their reputation is hurt because of it. And in the end, it hurt CD Projekt Red's reputation, and more importantly, investors and publishers out there, it hurt their bottom line, and they're only worth 25% of what they were worth before the release of Cyberpunk 2077. Let that sink in. So a new report was released from Business Insider Poland, and it paints a really, really dark picture for CD Projekt Red at this point. The company's value has dropped over 75% just before the launch of Cyberpunk 2077. Now, CD Projekt Red was worth about 40 billion Polish zloty. This is before the release of Cyberpunk 2077, which equates to about, so you understand, close to $8.5 billion. Now they're worth 25% of that. That is a big drop in company value. That means their worth has dropped down to about 2.1, just a little bit over 2.1 billion US dollars. So they took a massive hit when they released Cyberpunk 2077 because the game released in a crap state. Now, due to all the hype when it came to Cyberpunk 2077's launch, CD Projekt Red shares were trading at around 400 zloty each, and they even went up to 443 zlotys a share. That was just 6 days before Cyberpunk 2077 was on store shelves. And CD Projekt Red shares and market cap halved in value in the first few months of 2021. Then they halved again since the end of March of this year. Gee, I wonder why. So to break it down, this means that people didn't like Cyberpunk 2077, or at least the state that it was in when it first came out, and them just trying to patch up all of the problems with Cyberpunk 2077 has basically shaved off 5 years of the company's value. That is nuts. Now, keep in mind, Cyberpunk 2077 wasn't a failure. It sold about 14 million copies. And ever since the game was launched, the developer has focused on fixing problems with it, mainly on the console because the PC version is not as bad. And the multiplayer mode that CD Projekt Red promised is now not happening. And if you remember this banger, Sony actually removed the game from the PlayStation Store because it was in such a bad state. It returned, but that was not a good look for CD Projekt Red. Now let's look at other examples. Battlefield 2042 is in an absolute crap state. Halo Infinite as well. Halo Infinite didn't launch with Team Slayer, and the co-op mode they promised is still not there. They launched Halo Infinite piecemeal. It wasn't even the full game. They launched it in drips and drabs, and here we are. And look at the reception of the games. Look at how the games are hurting. Look at how people have stopped playing them, especially if you're thinking that microtransactions are going to be revenue streams from them. If people aren't playing them, they're not going to invest in skins. I hate calling it invest, but buy skins or whatever other things they want to buy from the different games out there. You have to have a polished product that people want to invest in. And maybe if this continues to happen where the bottom line of these developers keep getting hit, maybe finally at that point, publishers, because it's the publishers, the developers, they want to put out a quality product, but they're getting pressure from the publishers because the publishers just want to make money. Maybe they'll listen though and be like, oh wow, people will not spend money on our broken games, and our reputation from us releasing great products in the past can only go so far if we keep screwing up, or even if you screw up one time. And here's the thing, like people, I know there's a lot of developers out there, and I understand because they get thrown under the bus and it's not their fault, where developers say, it was one game that we tripped the launch of, cut us some slack, and the developer should be cut slack. I don't want to see them crunch. I want to see them focus on their mental and physical health and have time with their families. But the problem is that a game like Cyberpunk, which was heavily hyped, you released the first trailer for it, I believe in the spring of 2013. People are already waiting long enough. You couldn't have pushed it off like another year or two? But Rich, they needed to hit a certain deadline, or their stock would have plummeted or would have took a hit if they didn't release the game on time. Oh, look, it took an even worse hit because they released a half-assed broken product. Who would have thought? So look, I know they're working on the new Witcher game. It's going to use Unreal Engine 5. I'm actually excited for that. I finally want to sit down and play the original Witcher. I'm looking for something to fill the void of beating Elden Ring, and maybe that'll be the game that does it. But, I think CD Projekt Red will be fine in the long term? Yes. But hopefully they learn lessons from this. Hopefully 343 and Microsoft learned lessons from Halo Infinite. Hopefully EA, probably not, EA learned lessons from how they released Battlefield 2042. If you release a crap product, people won't buy it. It's that simple. This is Rich of Review Tech USA signing out. Have a good one.